Welcome back to Mid-Range Madness. In this part we're going to have a look at motors, props and battery sizes. This gets discussed a lot in a lot of the forums. There's a lot of debate on which way to go. I have tried a few different setups, from running lower kV, higher voltage, mid-range kV, higher voltage, also 7-inch props. Personally, for that longer cruisy flight, I prefer a 7-inch prop. On 4S, it's probably cruising at around 60 to 65 kilometers an hour, but only pulling around 9 to 12 amps. And out of a 1600 milliamp battery, I'm getting around 8 to 9 minute flights. That gets me out around the 3.5 kilometer mark out and back, so around a 7 to 8 kilometer round trip. I've just started to try it on 5S. It definitely picked the speed up. Amps was about the same, probably 9 to 12 amps. It was a little bit windy, so it was a little bit hard to tell the speed. Where I test it sometimes, it's sort of parallel off to a road that I can sort of see some cars in the distance. And so I guess it's pulling around the 80, maybe 90 kilometer hour mark at 9 to 12 amps. Running something like this, these are the F40 Pro V2s, 1600 kV on 6S. This is probably doing around 70 to 80 kilometers an hour with about 12 to 14 amps amp draw. I have a couple of different setups where I run a mid kV motor and around the 2350 to 2500 kV mark, and that gets me probably close to 90 to 100 kilometers an hour, pulling around about 18 to 20 amps. They're more straight out mid-range. This will fly further but slower. Battery size would be fairly similar, I would think. If you're going to run, say, a 4S 1600 to 1800 compared to a 5S, weight-wise, they'd probably be very similar. And that's the thing you got to look at. If you run 4S, say you run a 4S 24 2500 kV motor, and then run a 5S, the 5S, if it's the equivalent milliamp rating, actually is a higher density pack, so you can actually physically pull more power out of it. One good thing that we can get away with mini quads is our motors are voltage dependent, so we can go higher voltage, and for the same amount of amps we're getting more prop speed. Now, like I say, most of this is just my experience with running quads. I've only been doing this a few months, and so it's just my experience on what I've found so far. I run 3 or 4 different setups on 6-inch and a couple of different 7-inch setups. And a lot of it also comes down to battery size. I know that there's some guys out there running 3,000-4,000 milliamp packs on some of the really long range. On some of the other shorter range or mid-range, they're probably running 1,600, 1,800 milliamp packs. Most of my packs I run with the 4S on the 7-inch. Like I said, I'm only running 1,600 milliamps. With the 5 and 6S setups, I'm only running a 1,300 milliamp pack. Obviously, there's the advantage you can add more milliamps or more fuel in the fuel tank to fly further, but at the same time you get a bit of a diminishing return. So just say you doubled a 1,300 milliamp pack, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get another twice as long flight time, because the fact is you've just added probably another couple of 100 grams of weight to the quad. That's going to not only affect its performance, it's going to slow it down, and it's going to limit the run time as well. So you won't get double out of it. I'm not sure what the number is. I haven't tried it myself. I don't know whether, you know, if you double it, make it 100% bigger, whether you're going to get 80% more flight time, 50% more flight time. That's not something I've actually tried yet. So that's one of the things you got to think of. How far do you want to fly? If you're going to want to fly in excess of 4 or 5 miles, or 4 or 5 kilometres, it might pay to then look at, say, a 7-inch quad. They are more efficient. It mightn't be as fast. One of the things is, if you do run mid-range motor, mid-kV motors on 5S, you might only get, say, a 5-minute flight out of it. But because of the speed that it travels, you're actually travelling, covering quite a lot of ground. So you can actually get out somewhere and get back again with quite a fair bit of speed in those 5 or 6 minutes that you've got. The 7-inch I find to be just that more efficient, bigger prop, spinning slower, and you can just fly further. I'm sure that there's people out there that, you know, they've probably got some 6-inch setups that could go and fly further than what I've flown on my 7-inch. This is just my observation and what I've found so far, sort of comparing similar size batteries. Next part I'd like to look at is actually getting clean video footage. If anyone flying 6 and 7-inch quads will know that it can be very hard to get nice clean footage without jello. 7-inch more so than 6-inch. I find myself, even on 6-inch, if the wind starts to pick up, it's very hard to get clean footage. I tend to find that my quads will rock a bit from side to side depending on how strong the wind is. And depending on props, some of the props, and there's more and more props coming out now for 6 and 7-inch, where there hasn't been anything for a while. On my 7-inch I was running the HQ 7x4 5 carbon reinforced bi-blades, and absolutely terrific prop. Only require a little bit of balancing. That's another thing you can look at, is actually balancing the props, especially with the 7-inch props. The new 7x3.5x3 props from HQ are actually really good. They're quite smooth, and pretty much most people seem to be getting jello free. Myself, I still run TBS jello guard. You can mount these straight in front, just in front of the GoPro. They help by slowing the, I don't know if they actually have a shutter speed, but the mechanical or the electrical side of it in the GoPro, it slows the shutter speed down, lets in less light, and helps get rid of the jello. And on something like a 7-inch, if you're getting jello, one of the best things I've found is actually run a small couch mount. Get yourself some moon gel. This stuff's been used quite a bit, so it's a bit yucky. You can wash it. And basically all I do is lay a couple of pieces in. It's actually a different branded one. It came and it was oval, not square like the moon gel. The moon gel is a bit easier to work with being square. And then basically place your GoPro in, strap it over the top, and that helps with those vibes that you get. Now with the 7x3.5s, so far I've found that they don't have that really bad jello-y vibration that you get from the HQ 7x4 carbon reinforced. Now in saying that, some of this is going to be tune as well. It's something that I've tried to tune out, but just have not been able to. The only time that I've gotten really clear footage without using moon gel and without using one of these has been really early in the morning, just after the sun's come up, or just as it's gone down. But these little things will help if you're going to run, you know, in slight wind, if you're going to run when it's sunny. Depending on sort of the quad, on the 6-inch I find just your typical mount works quite well with just using one of the TBS jello guards, just to take out that little bit of jello that you'll get. Alrighty, I think that's about it for part 2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.